Conversion on an MC8. It's a 1977. I inherited it from my father, basically. We are, I would say, knee deep in it right now. Mechanically, the thing was in really good shape. It had some preventative maintenance stuff to do, but we've got a lot going on in the inside right now as well. So this used to be a passenger bus, and so there was windows down the entire side, and there were seats down both sides of an aisleway down the middle. What my father did was he converted this to a coach, which what they do is basically from here up, they tear it off and rebuild it. So it's been raised, I think, about a foot or a foot and a half. And as you can see, there's a lot more wall space now with less windows, so you can put stuff on the inside. This one also has a slide on it, which most of the MCIs don't have a slide on it, so that's kind of cool. We've been going through all of the underneath the wheel wells. One of the first things I did, I put all the wheels off and we undercoated all the wheel wells because they had holes up in them and it was leaking water up into the framing and the floor system of the bus, and which was causing mold and rot and everything else. So we can do a quick walkthrough of like the outside. This is where the generator's kept, which you can see I have the generator pulled out right now. That's a propane generator, and it's nice to have a generator, but also when the generator is in there, you really can't get to a lot of stuff. And what we found, there was a lot of wires running up into the house side of the bus, which is where you live, that weren't sealed up. So of course mice get up in there. So with that generator out, you can really get in there. You see the side of the engine and you can see all that compartment back there. All these wheels came off, brakes checked, airbags checked, all new shocks because the shocks are really old, and all of this has been undercoated and probably 50,000 tubes of caulk, really good high grade caulk and undercoat. Herculiner is a great undercoating for that. So here, this is the plumbing bay, which this is basically filled with water heaters, a hurricane system. There was 50 million miles of wires that came down, and the 3 storage tanks. So you have a freshwater tank, a gray water tank, and a black water tank. So that's what's on the other side there. These are basically about 8-foot long bays. There's 3 of them. These 2 you can't open while the slide's out, but we can see those from the other side when we go over there, but they can all go straight through. A lot of this tubing you see, that's the hurricane heating system, which I hear is a really great system, and it goes throughout the whole coach. Basically gives you radiant heating, but I haven't found a person in this area that knows about how to put them back together, and I had to take it apart. It's over there in the corner, so I know that's about a couple $1,000 if something needs to be put back together. One interesting thing you can see there is that pile of wires. That's what I tore out of the inside of this. This was basically just the lights and the plugs. Has nothing to do with the bus operating or running. This was all stuff that was added to plug stuff in to have light. It's probably 6 miles of wire. So yeah, that's that. So moving down here, one of the next apartments we'll see is the fuel tank, but actually the fuel tank is one thing we want to talk about today. This is like a 165 gallon diesel tank. And it's all aluminum. You'd think this thing would be really heavy, but I can lift it. It's really, really light. A couple things I had done is, one, this MCI had an auxiliary tank, which a lot of them don't have an auxiliary tank. So basically where this thing fits in the bus, there was 3 pipes on the bottom side of the bus with a guard over them that went back to one of the other storage bays, and it held another 40 gallons of fuel. And when I looked at the manual about how to remove the tank, it didn't say anything about that tank. So when I was forcing this thing out, I damaged all those pipes underneath there, which it ended up being a good thing because it's a really potential way to have a huge fuel leak. If you run over something, because the clearance on this thing is really low, you would essentially drain both of your tanks, like on the highway or whatever. So one thing I did was I had them look at the bottom of this thing, and you can see that's a whole new aluminum plate. So now the bottom is completely solid, because one thing you could see is, I mean, this thing is 50 years old, you know? You could take a needle, and I did this at the shop, and they would actually poke the needle in to the, you can almost see one right here. It's just a little like effervescence, right? And this one's not bad. But the ones on the bottom, you could stick the needle in them, and you were sticking it in like maybe 1/4 of an inch, which this is probably a 1/4 inch plate. So you could see how a leak would happen pretty easily. So this cost me like $600 to have this redone. They came and picked it up and did it. They were a great company.
Who is the company?
Cincinnati Radiator. And they, to give you an idea, to fill up this tank is about $400. So the first leak I had, there's $400, and you know, tow bill, and not to mention a huge mess, you know, because that's going all through the bottom side of your bus. So that tank, as soon as I get some time, is going to go back into this hole, which it's kind of hard to see in there. Wish I had
Here, shine your light in it.
Oh, I do have a light. I'm almost out of batteries on my headlamp, so it's supposed to be twice as bright as this. But I don't know if you can see in there, but the silver patch in the middle, that's where those pipes went out of the bottom. So I've put stainless steel back over that, because the whole frame of this thing is stainless steel. It's insane. And then I've undercoated it all, and then I caulked it all in, and then I'm going to do one more layer of the undercoat before I do all that. And I also removed a mile of wires from in here that were doing absolutely nothing. So you really don't want a lot of electricity in your fuel tank area. It's a good idea. And these are the two fuel lines that run to the engine. Well, one runs the engine and one's a return, so that'll just plug back in. So that's that area. Coming around the bus here. This was where the squirrels were coming in. Behind here, I can open it up real quick probably. I didn't even, when I got this bus, I didn't even know this existed. This is pretty cool. But that lifts up. And if you look in there, this is where you keep the spare tire. So basically, the squirrels were coming up in here. You can't really see, but back in there, there was a hole that went into the wheel well, and into that wheel well, there was some duct work, because this thing used to have duct work in the whole flooring system. And from there, the squirrel filled up all 4 wheel wells, front and back, and every bit of it with nuts. I removed probably 4 or 5 garbage bags filled with nuts. So it's crazy. So that's all new stainless steel in there, and I'm about to undercoat that. I just haven't had time because I keep getting distracted with other projects to do on the bus. So moving around, that's my phone. This is an electrical panel, which I treat with extreme respect if I touch anything in it. So we'll just look at it. I'm not going to touch anything. And this is finding all this stuff out. These are two water pipes that run from the engine, and they actually give you defrost heat for the winter time. So that's a very important thing to know. Close that thing. It's not going to stay with you. So basically all these panels around here can be opened and locked with a standard screwdriver. And that's the thing I seem like I never have on me. Anyway.
Did you pull all this out of there too?
Yeah, this is a lot of the plumbing stuff. He had an auxiliary fuel tank or an air tank which was leaking. One of the biggest things with this bus is everything runs on air. The brakes, the suspension, like this whole thing sits up on these big airbags. And that's what makes it ride so smooth. I mean, the windshield wipers, I mean, everything's run on air, everything. So your air system is extremely important. Your engine has a big compressor that basically makes air, and it pumps it through, and it's held. Hold on a second, let me check my phone, make sure it's not a kid or somebody's not dying. It is, it's my son. Hello. Where his Chinese food was. So anyway, so I was talking, so this is like called the tool compartment. I learned a lot of important stuff in here. I have to get a new windshield washer tank, which used to be mounted over here, but I'm going to mount it on the door where it was originally mounted because it's easier to fill it. And they've got some really nice ones. This is a super small one for this size of a bus, so that's on my list of things to get. But a couple issues in here. One, there's a hole in the front of the bus, like right in the corner, which I fixed that with stainless steel and rivets. But water was leaking in here, and there was a drain in the back, and that was all clogged up. And this is where the steering shaft is, and it's got a pan underneath it because it always drips oil and water and stuff. And this tube that's supposed to drain that was also clogged. So there's a lot of rot in here. And then which caused just a lot of rust, there's an air tank up in here, which is really hard to see, which is a very important part of the air system that I was just talking about. There's one here, and there's one between the tires that you can only get to if you have this thing over a pit. I brought it to a pit, we did that one, and yeah, there's no way to see it. It's actually up in a cavern between the two front tires. So a lot of work on that bay. And this is the door where you used to, when you pulled into the bus depot, you could hook an air line into, and it would blow like fresh air into the bus. Kind of cool. It's no longer used. This is the propane bay. This has 4 25-pound, 30-pound propane tanks in it. And there was a wall here. But as I said, when I didn't know how the fuel tank was in here and it wouldn't come out. So in my frustration one night, I tore out this wall and shoved on the tank some more, and that's what really bent up the pipes on the bottom. So whatever, I got to replace this wall. But I kind of like it to be a little bit removable because now I'll be able to see the backside of the fuel tank. One major thing that I'm doing on this whole system is between here and here, it's about 8 inches, and it's basically the old aisleway. If you look in there at a slope, there's an aisleway that runs up the middle, and this is all the old duct work. This is 50-year-old dust and just mayhem. And also the squirrel had all filled this up with, of course, there's feces, and there's nuts and rot and muck. So it's a horrible thing. So I have this company that's going to come and fill this entire void with closed cell foam, which is going to be amazing because I'm going to have like 8 inches of foam on the bottom side of me, so it'll make the inside extremely warm, sealed up, insulated. It's also fire rated and smoke rated, so if you have anything down here, it gives you an extra couple seconds to get out before the thing blows up, which is kind of nice. This was sealed off. This should have been left open as a vent because like this door vents, because if you have a propane leak in here, you want it to leak out and not up. But this vent should also be open because that's the battery compartment, and battery, I guess, makes some hydrogen gas or something like that floats up to the top, and you're supposed to have it vented. So there's a vent on the other side, and I'm gonna put a vent here. That way it'll have cross flow air and hopefully be a lot safer. And then this is the 2 bays I talked about that you can't open from the other side, which I have stripped out. I mean, I'm talking 3 layers of carpet, miles of plugs and lights and switches and things that were not the part of the bus. And these are going to be incredible storage areas. And the one over here actually has a trap door that goes up to the bus, which the boys could drop down on this thing if they wanted to, even probably while we're driving. So it'd be kind of fun. And then this is the other side of the plumbing bay. And this is where you would, lost my thing. This is where you would dump your black and gray tanks and fill up your water and do all that kind of stuff over here. And the tanks are actually right behind you, Kristen. That's one of them. What was really sad was the gray water tank, which that's like your hand washing and your dishwashing and stuff like that. That was actually still full halfway. So I had to empty that by hand while I was in here. And so I have this bus in this building because it's wintertime and I didn't want it to freeze this winter. And it's really hard to get it back in this building. I mean, it really fits by an inch. I had to cut the opening into this room a foot higher. As you can see up there, yeah, so that was a whole day ordeal. But anyway, I had to empty this thing by hand, and it was really, really gross. It was a bad day, but there's been better days. So that's the black water tank. That's where your poop goes. That's where your hand washing stuff goes. And this is your fresh water tank. Those will all go back in there someday. But one thing I'm gonna do is to make this thing insulated so it doesn't freeze, I'm gonna put an inch of foam on the floor. And then I'm going to put a rubber membrane up the walls. And I've already undercoated this one. So this thing is sealed up tighter than a drum. So then the rubber will kind of go like that. But then this wall here, I'm going to build this out 6 inches with metal framing. And then I'm going to basically fill this with foam. Because on the other side of this wall is the wheel well. So you're getting cold air right there. So you want to insulate this wall. I'm going to insulate the floor. The doors are already insulated, and just to save room on this one, I'm going to build the wall on the other side of this wall in this bay, and also fill that one with foam. So we'll have.
So you'll foam this wall.
Yeah.
And you'll foam that
wall.
Foam
that wall.
Yeah.
That way it'll have a foamed wall on both sides, foam underneath it, and as we mentioned, we're going to be doing some foam. So you can see the floors right there. And that's inside. This is where the poop used to come down, and now it's going to come down over here. So I shouldn't really touch that. That's gross. Because it was leaking. So you can see the floors right there. So what we'll do too is we'll probably put some 1.5 inch foam, rigid foam on the ceiling, just to really seal this bay. Because what you want to do is if you're not in this thing and it's wintertime, you want to be able to heat it. So this is a really good heater right here. It's running on a thermostat. So basically you could leave this thing and really heat up this
Can you shine the
thing.
light on the heater?
You could right there. Sorry, my light's really, really bad right now. And then you can keep this bay, it keeps everything from freezing, which is actually right below your bathroom, which will keep your bathroom warm and all the pipes from freezing. So really trying to control that. More tires. This thing's got 8 tires. Crazy. This was an interesting bay that I discovered. I was kind of ignoring it for a while. And then it kept calling my name when I walked by, and it said, "Fix me." So this thing's got like a Detroit 5 Series, the MCI engine. My dad took it out and put this Detroit engine in it, which I don't know anything about engines, but everybody I talk about this engine says it's really, really good. That's one thing my dad was good at, was engine work. And it has a turbocharger and also has a Jake brake, which a Jake brake uses compression from the engine to slow down the brakes or slow the vehicle down through the transmission. It's really, really a must-have. You're going to be going through the mountains, so you don't burn up your brakes. So you can literally drive this thing all day and not put your foot on the brake pedal. It's pretty cool. So anyway, this is where the turbocharger pipe used to come down right here, and it goes through this hole right here, and it went down to a muffler that's supposed to bring all the exhaust out the back here. What had happened was it wasn't wrapped, so it got the turbocharger in that pipe gets really, really hot, so it was melting. This is the main brain for like the electrical engine, everything. Like I don't even know what all that stuff does. Like it's crazy. there's a million wires in there, and it was basically melting. So it was melting all these wires up here. So I removed all those wires, replaced those wires. I've traced them down. A lot of them didn't go anything, thank God. But a couple things I'm going to do to combat that is, one, I wrapped this pipe with this special tape, which I'll show you that. And then also I bought this heat shield that will go over this. I'll put the cover back on this, and then a heat shield will go over this, which is supposed to dissipate like 2,000 degrees, like 80%. It's like made out of like lava rock. I mean, it was like $50. It's, I think, well worth the money. Another thing was going on here was, you used to plug the bus in here. The cord came up through here and plugged into an electrical box, which all that stuff was getting really hot. Sorry, I just heard something. There's a dog over there that doesn't like me, so I want to make sure it's not that dog. Anyway, so not all. You'll see me running up running up the bus. But anyway, all that electrical equipment was back here, and I've since moved that to a better location. So, because this area gets hot, you don't want electrical stuff there. But the exhaust was leaking, and the old hole where the exhaust used to come down, he didn't patch that, and then there's this other hole over here. So basically the exhaust was coming up into, like, right on the other side of this wall is where your bed is, okay? And when I demoed that area, it had white foam underneath it for insulation, but all the white foam was actually black because of all of the diesel fumes that coming up in there, which it's not good for you. So I'm fixed all the exhaust, which my mechanic is supposed to come do it, but now we're on hibernation, so we're not allowed to do that. So we're on hold. Quarantine, hibernation, or whatever you want to call it. Are you a bear? I'm a bear.
Here, let's get the turbo pipe and show them.
Yeah, I'll show them that. And we'll post something about this company. They're really, really good. This stuff is pretty easy to deal with. You just start it. It's just like a 2-inch or a 3-inch wide tape. Start here, and it comes with a stainless steel zip tie, and you just wrap it around really, really, really tight, and you do a 1/4-inch overlap.
So, and this withstands what? How much heat?
I got the thing around here somewhere, and I can post something about that. It's a lot. Like, this thing will be in direct contact with like 2,000 degrees, and I think it dissipates it by like 60% or something like that.
Okay.
Like it's crazy. It's like fiberglass that's infused with like lava rock, or like pulverized lava rock.
Okay.
And then to further protect that, I've got a spray that I got to put on it, but that's when the engine's up and running. You put the spray on it, you let it cook. You do that 3 times, and it really helps to protect this even more. And there's even actually, this company sells a boot that's made out of the same stuff that's custom made to fit your turbocharger, which will do the same thing for your turbocharger. It'll keep it really, really cool. And it actually is supposed to help performance. This is my new muffler pipe, which is really, really nice. And then this will shoot the exhaust out the side and up into the air instead of into the cabin. Which I
instead of into our bedroom.
Into our bedroom.
I love that. Okay.
Be really, really nice.
Okay. So this is the engine?
Yeah, this is the engine. I don't know.
We don't know much about engines.
Don't know anything about engine. This is one thing I'm trying to figure out now. We're tearing into this box. This is an old service box where they used to come in and do a bunch of stuff with the engine. I don't think any of it's operating anymore because, again, the engine got changed out. But there's some questionable electrical stuff up here, which I'm trying to trace all these wires. I know one does the blowers, and there's different stuff going on here. But we're trying to do new turn signals in the back. And one complication with this bus is everything used to run off 24 volt. And it's hard to find 24 volt LED bulbs that fit here and all this stuff. So we have to figure out how to convert the 24 volt to 12 volt to LED and do all that. So it's not as complicated as it looks. I just found a manual on this thing that shows me exactly where all the wires are. It's just a matter of doing it at this point. But we took out all the tail signals because they were all broken and not working. And another big thing we're doing is, excuse me, is all around the top, the marker lights. Excuse me. My God, sorry. We're putting new marker lights are LED. The incandescent ones, they get hot, and then that makes the housings deform. Then they start leaking. Then they start rusting, and then they start shorting out. So the LED is like a neoprene washer. It's a totally sealed unit. It doesn't get hot, and it lasts forever. So they're expensive though, and they're, you got to kind of rewire it. So I think it'll be worth it in the long run. Cool. Let's take a break for a second.
Okay. Okay.
So hey, how you doing? So this is the inside. Right now I got the seat out. So the seat usually goes there. This thing is so much fun to drive. I miss driving it, but we tore into the inside. I was going to try not to. I was almost done with the mechanicals on the outside and feeling really good about it. And then this had carpet in it. We started tearing out the carpet, and that's when I found out above the wheel wells, the floor was rotted. Tore out the floor above the wheel wells, which you can see right here. I put back most of the floor, but I've left these 2 access panels, actually 4 access panels, one over each bay. So right on the other side of this fiberglass is the wheel. So when I talked about earlier about having everything filled with closed cell foam, this is an area that I'm going to hit over all 4 wheel wells. So that'll be that. And then it kind of turned into redoing the kitchen, which is over down there on the right. It's hard to, it's really hard to get the scale of this thing, but it's basically 40 feet long, 8 feet tall, and 8 feet wide. It's a big old tube with a barrel ceiling. Basically, the more we got into, we just realized that behind all of the sheeting and behind all the walls was mold from a couple of leaks, and we'll go over some areas that I think caused all of that. But you can see what it's turned into is we completely gutted it down to the frame. And one thing that I'm doing now is I'm removing all the screws from the frame, which there's about 1 million of them, and they're a real pain in the butt. But this is what I did last night. You see this pile of screws. It's just 1 million zillion screws. So my main goal in here now is, one, we did a whole new design. I used to the kitchen came down here, then it did like a curve, and then the hallway was down the left-hand side. But one problem with this bus, one thing that makes it great and also a problem, is when this slide, the slide's not working right now. I mean, it works, but the electric's unhooked. It usually, when it comes in, when you're driving down the road, it comes in like 2 feet. So it'll come all the way to here. So the hallway was right here. So what happened, the refrigerator was right here, which opened up, and it was kind of weird. Because I think what he did the original remodel on it, and then he added the slide. So with the slide in mind, one thing I did is, my wife and I designed is the refrigerator is going to go right here. There'll be another wall like this built right here. Refrigerator will be tucked back in there on an outside wall. And now we're establishing more of a hallway down the middle, which I think will be a lot nicer, especially when the slide's in. Then you're basically just walking straight back. So yeah. So the front's been pretty much gutted, and the next thing I'm going to work on is doing the furring strips on the ceiling. And
somebody else already spray foamed, so it was already spray foamed. But tell what was wrong with the ceiling before.
So one issue they had is, this spray foam was done 10 years ago, which the products have gotten better, and also there's people that are better at applying it. But a couple things, as you can see here, this is an 1.5 inch square tube. So you can see here, you only maybe have a 1/2 inch of foam there. And then out here in some spots, you have 1.5 inches. So it's really not a consistent foam job. And I know my guy will do a lot better job. But also the products have gotten better. But it's a good start. I'm glad that that's there, because one issue is when you spray foam these things, they say you should go around and caulk all of the joints, because what can happen is that spray foam can get between your framing member and your outside shell and it actually pop it out, which that's a disaster. So I'm glad that that first layer is in there. But one thing that they did was they put plywood, they bent 1/2-inch plywood around here and they attached it with these screws, which an issue with that is that you've got, like say on a hot summer's day, you've got the sun beating on the outside of this thing, which is gonna heat up this framing member. And then you've got wood right against it, which is just a porous plywood. And then you've got air conditioning units that are blowing cold air. So you've got cold air, then 1/2 inch away, you've got something that's hot. And what happens is you get condensation. And with condensation, you can see that you're getting rust and you're getting mold and you're getting all this stuff. This is all rusty. So one thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put furring strips in to attach my end product. And this is a treated 1-inch deck board.
So you should do treated for sure.
Treated for sure, absolutely. Treated or metal if you've got tons of money, but you know, we're trying to save some money. So this is treated deck boards. I can get a 16-footer for $10, but I can, on my table saw, I can rip it down to 3 pieces. So you get, you know, 50 feet for $10. So it's really not a bad thing. And this is pressure treated and it's really, really strong. One thing I was gonna do was I was gonna run them straight down the framing members like this, right? Screw, 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 like every couple of feet or something like that. But I decided I could do better. So what I'm gonna do is, because what you don't want is you really want this framing member to be surrounded in insulation, at least 1 inch. So what I am gonna do is, this one's already filled with foam, which is great. So I'm gonna attach one here, and this will be where my wall board comes up and attaches to here. And then I'm gonna do one right next to it to help make the curve, right? So the only place that this thing's gonna come in contact with this thing is right here, which is not too bad. So then my next one, instead of running it there, what I'm gonna do is run it right there. So when I spray foam, that'll all be covered with foam, which would be really, really nice. And then at the ribs are every 5 feet. So at the midway point, I'm just gonna do a little metal clip right here to help keep this thing from bowing when they put the spray foam in. So basically I'll put these all up. This is gonna be a job. I got boards coming here soon. But I basically have to run, I think, if you really count it, it's probably 15 strips all the way back, and this thing is 40 feet long. So you do the math, it's a lot of work. But what would be really, really nice is once these are all in, spray foam it. I'll scrape this back down to the furring strip level, and then we'll be ready to hang board. And one system that I want to do on this is I want to frame it, and then I want to foam it, and then I'm going to do a combination of putting panels in. Like all these will be different panels that basically I'm going to have exposed screws where you can take down panels, because eventually you're going to have a leak. There's, you know, all these vents and stuff, and there's going to be a leak. So if you see water coming out of the ceiling, what you'll do is you'll pull that panel down, you'll dry that panel out, and I was going to polyurethane them on the other side. We're thinking maple panels now, I'm not sure. But I want to keep everything fully accessible and maintainable. Another thing that I'm doing is this is like some old electrical wire. This is running the running lights around the, like that's a exterior running light right there. I'm going to put in new wiring after the foam. So everything is going to be to where I can pull a panel off and see wiring. I'm not making any closed cavities anywhere. So for example, if this side of the wall has plywood on it, this side of the wall is not going to have plywood on it, right? So what you don't want to do is create any interior cavities or nooks, you know, if you can help it. So that's another process that I was trying to do throughout this.
So what are you going to put there over top of that?
There'll be nothing here. It'll just, because there'll be the washing machine will be down here like this, and you'll just keep it open. That way you can see everything and get to everything. The only reason there's a panel here is because these are going to be 2 pocket doors, and there will be a board here, but you'll still be able to look in there and see it. I just don't want to create any dead spaces where you can get funk, because I mean, you are in a big metal tube, so you are going to see condensation, moisture, you're gonna see all that kind of stuff. But I'm also gonna do the same thing down the walls with the furring strip. So basically this thing is gonna get about 2 more inches of foam, which I always joke that it's gonna make it 10 degrees warmer. That's what I used to do to my house. My wife used to make fun of me, but now she lives in a really, really warm house and she appreciates it. But you do appreciate it. Yeah, I deem that upon you. So yeah, we're gonna get probably another like R10 or something like that. So that'll be really good. My mic is slipping down, I think. So what else should we talk about in here?
Let's talk about where we're putting the bathroom.
Okay, yeah, so we're kind of keeping it a galley thing. So there's gonna be cabinets down here. So there'll be like a sink and a stove and all that stuff, and that's to be the boys.
We're putting a dryer right here.
Yeah, the dryer is gonna be undermounted right here, which we kind of inherited some appliances with this thing. We got a washer, dryer, we've got a toilet. You know, so we're trying to reuse as much stuff we can. So the dryer is going to go right here under the cabinet. And I think the stove will be right here. And then cabinet, sink, cabinet. So it'll be a very functional, usable kitchen. It's really nice when the slides out all the way too. We're thinking 2 futons right there. That's where the boys are going to sit and possibly sleep. And maybe a little curtain between them for privacy. And then where the refrigerator is now, that's going to be like 2 benches that turns into like with a table between it, where the table drops down, and for like storage and like maybe a little bed there if they've got a friend or something like that. So that's that area. And then basically at the midpoint of the bus, 20 feet back, we put this arched wall in, which interestingly enough, one thing I did learn about building, because I am a carpenter and I'm used to using a level. When I first built this, I built it level, right? Because the bus is sitting level, right? Well, no, the bus is not sitting level. So when I did some measurements and stuff, and I couldn't figure out, like the numbers weren't working out, and I'm really into numbers, and I'm like, something's wrong. So if you look at level, put a level on this now, you can see it's out of the bubble, it's not level, right? So one thing I learned very quick, unless you've got the money to put this thing up on a stand and keep it perfectly level, which just jacking this thing up is a nightmare. What I did was I measured from left to right at the bottom, and I found a center point, and I put a nail down here, and then, which is the center point of the bus with the floor. I hook it right there, and then I got a nail up here where I hang my chalk line, and I had this a lot tighter when I was doing it. But now, if you see, so that's the center line. Now if you measure over at the bottom, that's like 14 inches there. If you measure over the top there, you're at 14 inches there. So what you are is you're keeping everything not necessarily plumb, but you're keeping it consistent with the center line of the bus. So
interesting.
So I learned that lesson and adjusted my stuff after that. So okay,
and so this wall is a pocket door. It's gonna be a pocket
so it'll be 2 doors. So this will be like the public area. You have the refrigerator and you got the kitchen, but if you come back here, you know us more. And like, because this is gonna be, there'll be a door that opens right here, and you will come here and you will sit on your toilet. And I actually called one of my friends because he's a pretty big guy, and I asked him for his shoulder width, so make sure he fits in here. Because it's tight, every inch counts on these freaking buses, I'll tell you. So it'll be a toilet here, and then there's a lot going on over here. I still got to figure this out. I'm putting one of the hurricane heaters down here, which will blow hot air on the toilet. This toilet's going to be like steamy in the wintertime. And then there'll be a sink here, and then also the dryer vent's going to come through here and go through the side, so that's going to be crazy. Over here is going to be the washing machine down low, and then I've got all my electrical panels up here. This is my main electrical panel, this is my inverter panel, and then this thing actually has solar panels on it. So this is my solar feed, my solar array box will be here, my collector and the computer, and then there's a whole other 12-volt system that runs stuff on here. So this thing has solar, it's got 110, it's got 220, it's got 12 volt, it's got 24 volt, it's got solar. I mean, it's got the propane generator. So the power sources are overwhelming. So anyway, so then you'll come here. This will be a 32 by 32 shower. So you have a little shower stall here, and then basically where my lovely wife is standing and where the washing machine is stored right now, this is going to be a king size bed. And a couple modifications we're doing right now, if the world is still operating, is this area right here, this was an old backup camera, which the technology now is just amazingly better. They've got crazy stuff now for a couple $100. And 2 backup lights. I'm gonna cut a hole here so you can see the metal frame, and I'm gonna put a big escape hatch window out here, one that's rated for that.
So why do you want a big escape hatch? Let's talk about that.
Okay, so one day I was here and I got interrupted, and I was messing around with some wiring for the turn signals on the side. The wire got hot, it shorted against the metal frame, and all of a sudden the whole inside of this thing filled up with smoke pretty quick. So you can see within like a 10-minute area, there was a lot of smoke in here. So there used to be an escape hatch right here where this air conditioner was, and when this thing was a city bus or a passenger bus, but now there's an AC unit there. But really the only way out is either through one of these windows, which, don't get me wrong, I would make it through there, but I'm gonna have a broken collarbone because I'm gonna have to basically hurl myself through it. So we thought that, you're in bed, you kind of just do, because there's a little bump up right there, you can just bump up, pop up the thing, and then jump out the back, which would be pretty safe. And then also one thing I want to do eventually is do a ladder up the outside and maybe do a little rooftop deck, someplace my wife and I go hang out when the boys are hanging out over there. So that's a future thing. So window there, bed there, there'll be some storage under here. We still got to talk about some design back here, because we'll probably do some clothes storage on both sides, something like that.
And this is that vent channel you were talking about earlier where the squirrels were running through.
Yeah,
and you're going to fill that with foam.
Yeah, so this is all be foam. You can actually see the road right there. There's actually holes going down. I mean, that's the ground through there. Mm-hmm. There were some metal panels that I had to pry out of there, but all the rivets were busted and they were bent up. So that was another spot where animals were getting in. So I've got to fix metal on both sides.
I'm falling.
But good job, Ben.
Okay.
But yes, eventually we'll have 8 inches of foam below us, and what'll be really, really nice too is the back tires are right here too. So when you're driving, it'll really help to soften the noise as well. So it's going to be super, super cool.
And then what do you put on top of the foam?
Then we'll put plywood back down.
Okay.
So yeah, if it'd be foam.
So it'll look like this.
It'll look like that eventually. And then we're thinking about doing maybe tile right there where you're standing. That's what we were talking about last night in that little hallway there, and then switch back to the floor.
A little tile here to keep it wet.
Yeah, because that's
this
going
will
to
be our wet area. Washing dogs,
and then our dogs will be trashing everything too. So, yeah, we got to talk about that. But yeah, so this will be wood floor and then basically bed back here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's a good introduction to our bus.
Stay tuned for more.
Yeah, we'll get into more details. We'll get into more minutia next time. We just wanted to do the overview of where we are, our starting point, and then, don't lose my mic.
Sure.
And yeah, so, and if you guys have any questions, post them in the comments below.